Now you're very welcome back. Are we good to go? We are. You're very welcome back to the studio. We have Andy Dunne and Mal O'Kelly here. So Champions Cup opening weekend has thrown up its usual thrills and spills. Leinster on Friday night walloping Wasps 52 points to 3. Yesterday Munster went to Sandy Park, came on with 2 very valuable points instead of just the one that people figured would be a good result. And then yesterday in Belfast, Ulster beat Leicester. So really nice start for Ulster after a tricky couple of months. Lads, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Give me the years. Were you two teammates for a time? Yeah?
We were, weren't we?
Oh, I think...
Mal's not even sure.
Made a big impact
there. More enjoyable years. The Matty Williams years, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mike Ruddock and Matt Williams years, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
About 4 or 5 years, 9.
From about 19.
I did a runner to London.
Big fat contract.
Went to foggy London town, that's where I went, yeah.
And then Bath.
Where the streets were paved with gold.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years and Mal's not even sure.
Yeah, that'd be about right.
We may have been, but I don't know. Maybe for a month or two.
I knew there was years, but I just wasn't sure on the volume.
You can see how professional we were.
Because you would have come in through the academy, an official kind of academy and as such.
Well,
Matt, I wouldn't have known your name for at least 2 seasons.
And he came in late to a game in Donnybrook, late for the pre-match warm-up, and he had mustard and ketchup on the side of his mouth. Yeah. Liam told him to wipe away because he'd been outside in the car park getting a hot dog.
True story.
There is grain of truth in all of this type of thing. So no smoke without fire, that's for sure. But it's been embellished, let's say.
Right.
James Ryan doesn't have hot dogs before the game in the car park.
James Ryan, his mustard comes out of his nose. He's that keen for action.
These were different days. You had a quick metabolism. You needed to fuel up, you know.
Well, that's it. I used to live the other side of the city, so I had to do a lot of travel, and that takes a toll out of you.
Yeah, it's true. Friday night, traffic.
Friday night traffic.
Do you look, I mean, it's one of the great cliched questions you ask any pair who've retired. Do you look at the modern era and the protein shakes and the attention to detail and like the quality of coaching they're getting now and what they're learning about the game and just where rugby is financially in every other way? And do you think I'd love to have given it a whack in this era, or are you happy that you played when you did?
Well, I think I was pretty lucky that I got to taste both sides, because without it, like even from my academy days, we were all protein shakes. There was boys that were into it, and you know, I think the subtle changes certainly from a coaching perspective is just again that clarity and that precision, where we used to cover all the bases. You know, so they've really kind of focused in a lot more, and similar so with your training, it's got a lot more focused on doing stuff that gets results. Whereas at the start, we were pretty much kind of do everything and hope that we cover the bases.
So if you could come through like James Ryan has in the last year, would you prefer to do it now rather than then?
I think it's very hard for a young guy to get a break now, unless you're a phenomenon. You know, I can only think of a handful of guys who got it through, like maybe Luke Fitzgerald, or Rob Carney, Cian Healy. These guys are few, and then like the likes of a James Ryan. But for every James Ryan, there's, you know, a young fullback, Jack Kelly, who was ahead of Jordan Larmour, and then suddenly one injury sees him way down the list. Well, he's down the list anyway, you know. So. Like it's hard for some of these young guys to make the break.
It's the other side of the coin.
So
right?
Whereas for me, I was coming up against amateur guys, you know, and suddenly I had been given all the information to become a professional, you know. So I was given all the information. The lads were still working in the bank, and you know, and all that. And it was more for me. It was adjustment of mentality and finding a squad and trying to build a culture. That was the toughest thing for us, was the fact that we all as a team had to find that winning formula, and it was very difficult for everyone because no one knew it.
Well, look, it's hard to give up the hot dogs before kick-off.
You know, there's some things I won't do.
What about you, Andy?
I think the struggle was the crossover, but the game went professional in name in '95, and I would say when Matt came into Leinster, he probably tried. He was the first one who really tried to embrace what is close to a current professional setup, and that was down to things such as like getting training gear, getting a sponsorship deal for your boots, or you know, having one location to train in, and all.
But
these
he was more about on pitch, I thought. I think it wasn't until Checa arrived he only went, hold on a minute, where are you training? What is your facilities?
It was a
You've no facilities?
prefab, effectively, not
What
even.
is this?
Yeah.
You know, this is a disgrace. You guys are European wannabes, you know, and you're changing out the boot of your car. It's madness.
Yeah.
So he was, you know what, that was when? I
was in England at that stage. I think 06, 05, 06
So
was
was that
Checker,
far
I
on?
think.
Yeah, 05, 06, yeah, 5 years from 10, yeah, 5 onwards, yeah. You know, so that's not that long ago.
It's incredible how quickly it's changed, isn't it? So you both watched the game at the RDS on Friday night. Let's work our way in chronological order. 52 points to 3, 8 tries. I was watching back the highlights again over the weekend. One of the scary things is just how much they celebrate the 8th try to crack the 50-point barrier. It's like they've scored the winning try of the game.
Yeah.
There is a hunger about this team, driven, I suppose, by the fact that they know if they're in this team, they're probably going to be part of a European Cup winning side. They all want to be there. Rob Kearney was saying, at this stage, even the players aren't sure what the strongest team is anymore. When they're at the Monday morning team meeting and when they're naming the teams, it's very quiet.
So
and even
there's
we
that
don't know.
competition for places.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
27 internationals to pick from.
It's incredible, yeah. You know, I suppose it's like many European Cup matches I played in RDS is that you've got to do the hard work first. And although it finished the way it finished, you know, with 35 minutes gone, like there was 7-3.
38 minutes gone, yeah. 2 minutes before half time.
Yeah, like
the Sopoaga sin bin, effectively, that changes.
like
when he comes back on 10 minutes later, it's gone from 7-3 to 21 points to 3.
Yeah, but like any other, I don't know if it's any other team, but that they would not let that half finish until they got what they wanted.
Yeah.
You know, and they stuck with it and stuck with it. And, you know, most of their teams would kick that ball out, you know, and been happy and gone into the changing room. But they didn't give up until they got a try, and it was a phenomenal try.
Lawrence Delalio today talks about that decision just before half-time, and he says it's All Blacks-esque.
Yeah.
You know, it just reminded me of All Blacks. That's where they are right now.
There's a huge parallel between how the All Blacks are playing. Everyone celebrates it come the final whistle and say, you know, they hockeyed another team. The All Blacks, they put 40 or 50 on a team. And how did they actually go about doing it? And you think back to, as Mal said, 38 minutes gone, 7-3. There was a stat after I think it was early 20s minutes, like 22, 23 minutes, and Wasps had made 86 tackles. And then the BT brought up another little graphic, and it showed there been 22 collisions. Leinster had won 22. So if you want to try and take them on, you're going to have to tackle them, you're going to have to stop them, and you're going to have to do it relentlessly. Otherwise, they're going to score. It's like they gave them no breathing space. They had their foot on their neck. And Wasps
that was
stuck
the line
with them
I used. I used that very line to my 6-year-old who I brought to the match.
Nice.
He didn't quite understand what I was
Bit
saying.
violent for a 6-year-old. Come on now.
Yeah.
Foot in the neck.
He's done it.
Kill them.
He does that to his brother the whole time. So
I'm sure.
You can get the metaphor.
It was interesting. Tyg Furlong was interviewed very briefly by Brian O'Driscoll before the match on the television, and he said, so what's the plan today? And Furlong said, well, after the Munster match, the plan today is to keep the ball. And I mean, true as their word. I think half an hour in, the stat came up that Sexton had touched the ball 14 times and only kicked it once. So they really just decided, we are going to keep the ball here, and off they went.
But it just shows you how important mentality is. Like, once the Wasps felt the game was gone, they started getting soft, like soft tackles and what have you, and the floodgates opened. But in that first half, like I spoke with Cian Healy, and he was saying, you know, it's a pity didn't come on the second half. Because you imagine the 40 minutes Cian Healy had as opposed to the 40 minutes Jack McGrath had. Were two completely different matches.
And do you tell the Leinster players that you're going to recount their conversations on the radio that weekend, or is this a...
Yeah, well, you know, this is the new me, you know.
What else was he saying?
Spill the beans.
Well, then let's take the first half as maybe the more interesting one as the tournament goes on. Because even Leo Cullen sort of said, well, look, set piece at times, the line out, bit of difficulty there, the odd scrum here and there. I'm nitpicking here unbelievably, but is there anything you see in the first half that jumps out at you as something that they'll work on over the next couple of weeks in particular?
Well, I suppose their accuracy, not accuracy, their ability to actually put their advantage, like they squandered a few opportunities. You know, away from home, do you get those opportunities? It's not always going to open up for you like it did in the second half, certainly away. So that when it was really tight and tough, they weren't getting the incisions that you would have liked to see, and they certainly squandered a couple of opportunities.
They were playing off Luke McGrath to a greater degree than they were playing off Johnny in the slightly wider channel. So Luke was hitting up forwards, which it's probably more of an Irish approach under Schmidt, where you hit up the one-out runners, and it's up to those guys then to use, and they do it bloody well, is to use their footwork to actually gain that extra metre or two. Lesser players under that strategy run into the brick wall and your ball remains slow. But the Leinster team, and it's absolutely being coached, it's not an accident. They've 4 or 5 forwards who are very comfortable, very close to the tackle line, receiving the ball late and still making ground. And leg drive, evasion, handing off.
Well, the Tig Furlong offload out of the tackle is a moment. And then he's straight back up and tries and rejoins the attack then. I mean, he's 18 stone, he's trucking around. And
very nice, Well, that's what believe me, every forward, Leinster forward, they're the moments that you want to be part of, but it's only due to the first 40 minutes of hard graft that you get to those. So, like, everyone, that could have been, like, in the pack, that could have been my moment, but Tig, of course, gets it, and it's a great moment for Leinster rugby.
I think there's an element of where we talk about, Leinster going out and destroying a team, and Wasps, and particularly Sapawanga, let himself down. He is an All Black, and in that first half, so here it's an interesting thing. Leinster were playing into the wind, and they're not going to kick. Wasps do have a wind, and he kicked aimlessly on 1 or 2 occasions with that wind. The thing that happens when you're playing with the wind as a 10 or as a 9, if you can imagine this, it sounds a bit complicated. You're actually passing into the wind. Your passes are going backwards. Sapawanga's passing was wayward to the point that I think he started, his head went a bit, and then suddenly he makes that really rash knockdown. It's still 7-3, and Wasps were right in the game.
It's half time effectively.
So your guy that they've paid $500,000 a year for, that they've brought in, who's an All Black, he's got to do better in a European game away from home. So Leinster were right in that battle, and his execution was poor, probably leading and culminating into a rash decision. And I would imagine they're really disappointed with his effort.
A question for you. You mentioned Luke McGrath there. It's worth stopping on Luke for a second. 2 tries. Neil Francis makes the point in the paper today that McGrath's done nothing wrong. He got injured at the wrong time. He missed a Grand Slam winning campaign, and Frano said for him, he still has McGrath ahead of Cooney and Marmion. He should still be the number 2.
He's the thing that impresses me most about his play is the amount of scores he gets. He picks up tries as a 9, probably a minimum of 10 a season.
I jotted it down, the number. I think he's up to a really good number he's at about 22, 21 European Cup appearances. I think he's up to getting close to 10 tries.
His physicality is incredible. Joey Carberry, who comes from the Joey Carberry tackle against Joey made a lovely dart through the Leinster front fence line, and Luke just cut him in 2. You remember that? It was a phenomenal tackle.
He's a tough.
He does. I don't know, his delivery from A to B, still, probably fractionally off what it needs to be a real international.
And so when you say that, are you talking about the gap from him getting the ball and getting the pass off, or are you talking about the pace on the pass?
I wouldn't. His pace on the pass is fine. I would just say it's just a step. It's just a confidence thing. It's just like, I suppose it's a little flint, someone has a little trigger or whatever it is, just a step. Conor Murray used to have it.
That's right.
And he would have worked really hard. And I know he's probably working really hard, and he's unlikely to be listening to this, but if he was, he'd probably be going like, that's what I'm trying to get rid of, and probably does 70-80% of the time. But there's that moment when the ball isn't great or whatever, and it just gives nowadays the defence enough time to create a negative. You get a negative carry.
I wonder, do we underestimate how difficult that is to get over, get down and get the ball off that quickly, because clearly Murray and many others have had that accusation thrown at them, and they're very coordinated, talented people. So it must be a very difficult thing.
Well, it is, and it requires lots of repetition, and I think he's absolutely getting there. His support lines is remember Sean Edwards, from our generation, Sean Edwards playing rugby league for Wigan. And he used to be exactly the same. He just seemed to be on the end of everything,
shoulder,
scoring tries all the time. That's not an accident.
Yeah.
The try where Furlong gets all the credit. Well, that was an amazing sequence of play. James Ryan won the Wasps line out at the front, jumping at 2. Leinster got the ball back into midfield. Ryan took an amazing line break as well, and then eventually Furlong makes a break. And on his inside, if you watch it back, Luke McGrath has run from the ruck he passed diagonally ahead of play. He's running a 45-degree angle ahead of play in anticipation that it's going to catch up with him, and he's on the guy's shoulder. For kids watching that, it's a ballsy thing to do in terms of support play, because you're anticipating the team being successful enough.
It's a real kind of circular thing, support play, isn't it? Because he gets up in the knowledge that with James Lowe on the ball and Furlong on the ball, it's quite likely this thing is going to keep on going. Where on certain teams, if you're Luke McGrath, you get up and you think, well, I'm going to jog up to the old scrum or the old breakdown that's going on up here, and there's no need to get up.
I can remember, again, I'm going back a bit now to days of Josh Kronfeld, and he would have been one of the first guys I knew that used to anticipate. And sometimes you'd see New Zealand be playing, and then suddenly you see Josh Kronfeld play 15 yards ahead of the play. And he's come off a line out and he's just gone off, and then suddenly the winger has made a break, and there's Josh Kronfeld for the simplest
as if by magic.
And you know,
that's an innate thing as opposed to a teachable thing.
No, it's all teachable.
I think it's all.
We would have learned from that, and we would have learned. You know, like Will Green would have been another man who would just for an either tight head, who would just find himself at the end of a pass.
Will Green.
What did I say?
Will Greenwood.
Oh, sorry, Will Green.
So you think it is teachable, and Mal, you don't?
Yeah. Oh no, it is teachable. No, I agree.
Oh, you do? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, you have to learn these. You have to, like in rugby, you have to learn these things. You have to see other people doing it.
Yeah.
But maybe not everyone gets it, or never gets the opportunity to do it, or when to use it.
Yeah, there's some.
It doesn't happen for them, and they end up 15 yards ahead of a play and have to run back.
There's some lovely moments that I'm sure your 6-year-old enjoys, like. It's just kind of a wow moment when Sexton pops the ball through his legs, and James Lowe is doing amazing things as well, quite frankly. So they're a joy to watch. Who can stop them in this tournament? It's a dreadful question to ask in the first weekend.
There's lots of factors. I'd throw the usual thing out.
Injuries.
There's lots of factors. Yeah, there's injuries, there's weather, there's, there's the duration of the season, and especially when you get to a cup scenario, you're going to get a team that could be absolutely on fire, super hungry. Like the Racing final, I didn't see that one coming. What Racing's brought to it, and the conditions, can change. Like if it had been howling wind like it was down in Exeter, there's no way that Leinster could have played the type of rugby that they played. So it changes everything. Rugby is rugby, and it's an odd-shaped ball. It can bounce anyway. So, but they've certainly got all the tools, right? They got the squad, they've got the skill, they've got like the knowledge between them, the experience between them. They've got the mental fortitude, and it's all looking very positive at the moment. And for them, they'll just look for the next game. They could go down to Toulouse. Toulouse are a big physical side. And things could go a bit pear-shaped for them, you wouldn't know, and they could come out of there without a win. Yeah. We're all expecting them to go down to Toulouse and actually beat them. Yeah. I've gone down there many times. That's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. Even though we've gone and maybe even beaten Bourgoin 70 points one week, go down the next week and you lose. Yeah. Rugby's a funny game.
I think they're less susceptible to those wild swings because you mentioned the All Blacks shows in comparison. They have this same mantra that is very process driven, that they really never get tired of doing the simple things extraordinarily well, whether it's winning every little collision and every detail around that, and doing it so consistently and so regularly that eventually the dam bursts, like it did against Wasps, and the team and they run in, 30 odd 40 points unanswered in the second half. But it took this I suppose attention to detail in every facet of their play in the first 40 minutes to break them down. And as a result of that, I think they're far less susceptible to Irish provincial teams of old going away and having wild swings in terms of whether being home or being away. I think they are right now, I think by a distance, what you would have to say the best team in Europe. But like you said, Mal, they're, the Racing final, I don't think anyone predicted how close that would have been last year. So,
are there any Felipe Contepomi fingerprints emerging?
Johnny Sexton flicking the ball through his legs, I would have thought has something to do. Johnny doesn't get the credit for having flair, but that was that was like a beautiful sporting moment to watch how he did that. It was amazing, and maybe that's something that the artist Felipe encourages.
I haven't seen the chip kick from around 22 yet.
No, I don't know if Johnny wants that one, but yeah.
Because O'Driscoll did it against Northampton away, didn't he? A couple of years ago. That was the last one, I thought.
Yeah. Carlos Spencer, I think Spencer did it in the World Cup quarter-final as well against South Africa.
And in general play, the way they're lining up or anything, is it too early for Contepomi to have shaped that, or are you seeing anything particularly new from last year?
I don't know.
A little more cutting edge on some set piece plays off scrums in initial Pro 14 games, and again that play, like set piece plays off scrums, are a bit like fashion. They come and go. Someone goes, "What a great play!" They ran a play in the first Pro 14 game this year that Sexton received. It was complicated looking, but Sexton received the ball back from a guy he had given a switch to, and we played against Glasgow years ago. Tommy Hayes, this Tongan guy, used the exact same play. That's like 18 years ago. So whether Felipe's gone dusting off some old videotape and looking at plays, but maybe just some ingenuity there. Yeah,
he's going to be working on guys' lines and trying to improve the lines, especially some of the younger guys. Like, he's not going to need to offer Johnny too much. He'll work in parallel with Johnny, I'm sure. I don't think he's going to bring anything radical. Like, that's not really what they need. They have their starter plays. It's just maybe tweaking some of the maybe second centre's line or the inside centre's line, and a fresh set of eyes to it. And just a tweak. I
guess you don't need to revolutionise the European champions.
They won't want anything radical, because actually one of the things that's so commendable about the Lancaster-Cullen management combination is that it really is without ego. There's never any kind of power struggle between the two of them, and I'm sure bringing in a big character like Felipe, they want him to be very much, I would say, diluted and just come in and toe the party line, much like Stuart and Leo did themselves. So they're probably conscious they don't want a massive impact.
Yeah. So Leinster 52, Wasps 3, they go to Toulouse next Saturday, as we mentioned. Munster away to Exeter was being talked about as a losing bonus point is a very respectable result here, and Munster being Munster, I mean, they could have won it, but they certainly come home with 2 points, and maybe just as importantly, stop Exeter getting the 4. So what did we make of this, Mal? Munster were into stiff breeze for the first half, and then second half had it with them.
Yeah. This was again. People had suggested that this was one really that to get away with keeping the scoreline close and getting something out of it. It would be a result with the loss of Connor and fairly new 10 with Joey. So there was a lot for them, but they did exactly that. They kept in the game. They stuck in it. The conditions were like we talked about the Leinster conditions. This was nothing like the Exeter conditions. The wind was unbelievable, almost unplayable into it. So it was a battle of two halves. It was one chance you had your opportunities to score, and the other one didn't. Otherwise you held on. So the first half, Munster did did what they had to do, dug deep, and kept Exeter to 1.
Yeah. The gap was 7 points.
Gap was only 7 points. Like, to even get 3 points was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And then Munster just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. I was very impressed with Joey Carberry, his ability to manage the game with the wind.
That's the big question mark.
That was always his
Carberry,
question.
yeah.
Can he manage a game? And he certainly is coming around very quickly.
So what kind of things do you see that you like?
Well, for me, he was never really that exposed to playing 10. It was always ever off the bench or a Pro 14 game. But now he's playing at that top level now, top European level, and he's managed the game really well. I thought his kicking with the wind was really good,
except for the one at the end.
Well, yeah. That was a pretty incredible kick, right?
When it left his boot, you weren't worried.
Yeah.
And it just kept going and going and going and going and going.
Yeah. That's Well, maybe he's got a bit of work to do now. But there was another key moment in that game where Exeter were obviously against the wind, finally got their break because they'd been holding on to the ball for like the whole game or the whole half. They'd been holding on to the ball and getting nowhere. Eventually, to get a break, to go down the line, and they looked like they're going to score. But Duncan Williams, who was in the original front line, makes a incredible tackle, assist tackle with the fullback. Then gets up and around and then tackles the scrum half, who has gone one way, realised he has to go the other way. Gets tackled with the ball, turnover, scrum, penalty, Munster out, and at that point it was 7-3. Had Exeter scored at that stage, the game was over. But they come back and then they get their try, it would have been 10-3. It was 10-all, and that was the 2 points.
Yeah, the much maligned Duncan Williams.
Williams.
It was notable. Van Gran singled him out for praise after the game in the media, and I think there was an element of, gratitude as well, because I'm sure Van Gran looked at it. He's probably feels like he's finally got a 10 who can do something consistently for the team at the highest level. And when he goes and finds the 10, all his 9s get injured. And so Duncan, there was maybe an unfair kind of view of his general contribution to Munster, in that he hasn't quite, grasped opportunities at times, but if that was an opportunity, he grasped that one. Murray Kinsler loves a stat and said during last week, I wasn't aware, he's got the most try assists in the Pro 14 this season. So he's done 8 times, 7-8 times, and he is been an effective contributor to their group, and I think he's now shown them, along with Mathewson, who's come in on a short-term deal, and obviously James Hart is injured, that they do have some depth in a position where they require it apart from Connor, and it's probably the thing that separates them as a squad over as a roster of 40 to 45 players. They don't have the strength across the board that Leinster do, but it's building. I think their starting team is stronger than it has been in the last 3-4 years. It's, do they have the backup? And then someone like Williams coming in and grasping it like he did, that opportunity, that's a real positive for Van Gran. If
there's a criticism maybe or something for them to look at, it's maybe their cutting edge. A few people today in the paper certainly made that point. They coughed the ball up a few times needlessly in the Exeter 22. I was watching Shane Jennings last night on the highlights show saying, you've got to keep the ball long enough to ask questions of the defence, and just showed a few examples of them coughing it up. So that's something. Keith Earls obviously was on the bench and would be handy in those circumstances. So Munster's cutting edge is a question for them, because they had a lot of the ball at the Aviva as well, and didn't translate that into points.
They do a lot of one-pass plays, right? And they just take it up, they truck it up.
Yeah. So they need to be stronger and bigger than the opposition effectively for that to work, do they?
They probably need to, with the likes of Joey Carberry now in place, they probably need to trust a little bit more that they can do something a little bit more simplistic, a little bit more creative, and where there's a wrinkle in what they do. A small wrinkle. Jordan Larmour's try You remember, there's a simple unders overs play, really simple, but it asks a lot of more questions off the defence. I think Munster just need to get a little bit more intelligent around what they're doing. Like, they can hold on to the ball forever. They showed against Leinster that they'll hold on to the ball forever. But it's actually what they're doing with it. And against really good teams, eventually, you know, if you hold on to the ball for 20 times, eventually you're going to get tired and you're going to drop the ball. Some fella's going to hit you and do something. So you need, within those 10 phases or 15 phases, you need to be scoring a try. You know, you can't just keep doing the same thing, because teams know that against Munster, that all they do is one pass plays, even if it's just another pass. And they've got smart enough guys to do that. They just need to really build their playbook.
Yeah, we'll get on to Ulster-Leicester in a second, but Ulster beat Leicester, Munster go to Exeter, along with Saracens, the best team in the Premiership. We see what Leinster did to Wasps. Premiership doesn't look all too scary at the moment, does it? Is the standard fairly lukewarm in the Premiership?
I think Di Young had an interesting thing to say afterward. He was going like that the salary cap in the Premiership is creating small squads for the English Premiership. Yeah. So that the English Premiership have to go back to back with their players a lot more. And the players are getting injured. Like Wasps were missing Launchbury, they were missing Nathan Hughes. Why not? He was punching the head off someone. But like they're missing key players because they're injured. Or if they're not injured, they're resting them for a Premiership match.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I don't know if you saw in the last couple of weeks, Bath were criticised. You know, I listened to various Premiership podcasts or the English media talking about the rugby, and they were not happy that Bath, away to Saracens recently, had rested a bunch of players because they had Exeter at home the following week, and then obviously Toulouse yesterday. And there was almost a sense of outrage, like, this is not the Premiership. We don't rest players. But clearly, Todd Blackadder and a few others are kind of saying, well, like, I don't have a big enough squad, I have to.
I think Bath are a prime example of what is the difference with the Irish setups. So Bath have this Bruce Craig, who thinks he's Bruce Wayne, in charge of you know, he owns Bath Rugby. They have most of the clubs have a wealthy owner, and it gets a bit like the French model, where they're interfering in terms of how the team works. Bath put up a open letter to their supporters on their website about 3 weeks ago, and it's actually laughable. It's the most confusing document I've ever read. It's about Stuart Hooper is going to come in as our head coach when we think he's ready, and he's not ready right now. So right now, Todd Blackadder is going to step aside as head coach and give Stuart Hooper the reins until he's ready. And it was just bizarre to read.
If you're a player looking at that,
if he's not good enough to be your head coach now, you don't go out and announce it to everyone and say he's going to be in 3 months. And in the meantime, until Todd feels he's okay, because Todd's a great guy and Stuart's a great guy, like, they're a club that can't get out of their own way at the moment. And it's an interesting thing. You could be very harsh on Freddie Burns for missing the kick in front of the post, or for the knock on. But a guy called Tom Homer did the exact same thing 4 weeks ago for them against Bristol. Wow. And knocked on, putting the ball down. Reece Priestland came out yesterday and said there's something in our mentality that is wrong. Right. And he said whether guys feel like they're celebrating going over the try line. I think Priestland was so aghast about what happened yesterday that he said there actually is something deeper going on here. It's whether the concentration levels, the lack of direction. The English clubs don't have what we have. We have this centralised system with very, very good schools, feeding guys in. I think we've got coaches who are probably prepared to innovate to a greater degree. I just think there's a marked difference between where we are as a structure for Irish rugby compared to a very divided structure in the English setup. It's not all built around, it's very individualised, and you've got guys with big attitudes and egos who are affecting how a club is run. And we got lucky, whoever made that choice in the IRFU 20 odd years ago.
It gets better every year, doesn't it?
Better, the most brilliant decision in hindsight,
Yeah. We'll take a quick break. We're back with more from Andy Dunne and Mallow Kelly in just a second.
Off the ball on News Talk. Lunchtime Live.
Oh Lord, this is a bit rude, but let's do it anyway. Did you hear about the short-sighted urologist? He got the sack. That's terrible.
You know what? I wasn't going to tell this one then, but if you've gone to lower the tone, a guy goes to the doctor and he says, "I'm very worried. I have a piece of lettuce in my bum." And the doctor said, "Well, I'm afraid that's just the tip of the iceberg." You lower the tone, I'm going to go right just down there.
That's the thing, when we go low, you go lower.
Lunchtime Live with Ciara Kelly.
Thanks to VideoDoc.
Back tomorrow at midday on News Talk.
Apparently, being over 65
makes us grown-ups.
Apparently.
Which makes us mature.
Except when you take my remote.
It's not your remote.
But every year, we get the flu vaccine.
Because flu can cause serious illness or death.
We treasure the life we have.
So, we'll be our own lifesavers.
The flu vaccine is a lifesaver for people over 65. Ask your GP, pharmacist or visit hse.ie.
I'm Grace, I'm from County Laois. I work as a full-time care assistant and I use Circle K in Portlaoise. As a mum of one, I find I'm always on the go, whether it's driving my daughter to football training, doing the weekly shop or driving her to school. I feel I don't always have to fill up as much when I use miles from Circle K, and I also feel like I get my money's worth, which is hugely important to me.
Miles from Circle K saves you up to 4 cents per litre. Miles fuels are A quality approved. Savings may vary. See circlek.ie/miles for details.
First man to walk on the moon.
It'll be a hell of a ride.
First Man has critics rating 5 stars. It's a blockbuster that's out of this world. It's an extraordinary cinematic achievement. It will take your breath away.
Good luck.
From the director of La La Land, Ryan Gosling.
We have serious problems.
We've got this under control. Claire Foy.
You don't have anything under control.
It's the best movie of the year.
Do you think you're coming back?
First Man. In cinemas now. Certificate 12A.
You can join any type of company these days, but wouldn't you rather shape one? Aldi are now recruiting ambitious graduates to join their Graduate Area Manager training programme. They're looking for graduates who combine intellect and fresh ideas with a determined roll-your-sleeves-up attitude. You'll have the chance to run a multi-million euro business after only 12 months. And you'll be presented with new challenges and new opportunities every day. Apply now at aldirecruitment.ie. Closing date for applications is November 30th, 2018. Aldi. Every day amazing.
Tickets, please.
I don't know what a tracker mortgage is.
Sir, I'm a ticket inspector, not a banker.
Remember when we didn't know what a tracker was?
Tickets, please.
If we had, we'd have been better off. But now we know everything.
I don't know what a heat pump is.
Or not. Save on your home heating and hot water with a Mitsubishi Electric EcoDan heat pump.
But I don't know their phone number.
It's 1-890-326-326.
Oh, thanks.
Or visit mitsubishielectric.ie/heating.
At SEAT, we know you're on the move all the time. Up, down, fast, slow. So what about a car that moves you? Available with advanced full-link technology and wireless phone charging. Alert with pedestrian monitoring and blind spot detection. Stylish with full LED lights and interior ambient lighting. Made possible with extremely low monthly repayments and scrappage of up to €5,000. Tempted? The 191 SEAT range. Make your move. Visit seat.ie/191. Terms and conditions apply.
Bruce Betting, Sportsbook, Casino, and now Live Casino. Download the Bruce Betting app to see why for the Premier League, Bruce Betting are giving you more. With price boosts, live in-play betting, cash out, and ACCA insurance. Make Bruce Betting your Premier League bookmaker. Bruce Betting, in-store, online, and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Welcome back. We're looking through the weekend's Champions Cup action with Andy Dunne and Mal O'Kelly. We were just chatting there during the ad break, so we left off sort of talking about the Premiership and the standards, given that Wasps lost so badly and Munster went over to Sandy Park and Ulster beat Leicester, and we're sort of saying, well, the Premiership maybe isn't all that. Was it stronger 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Well, I think when England won the World Cup in 2003, that's one of the best squads ever assembled in professional rugby. An incredible side. But I think they had a number of key individuals and leaders who were going to their respective clubs and being a driving force among the group. And I think that separated them for a number of years. And Wasps under Gatland winning a couple of Heineken Cups had the likes of Delalio driving those guys. Leicester had Johnson. In Queens we had Jason Leonard and Will Greenwood. Each of these guys was going back and making a significant contribution to the culture within their club. If you look at that current English squad, there's lots of ability, but I just don't think they've got the same personnel in terms of character. And if that, maybe that's inaccurate, but I think that is actually quite a contributor to what's happening across the Premiership. And again, I mentioned that Bath setup at the moment that is so without direction and lost that you think, who's the guy in there who's their senior pro, who's grabbing it around the scruff of the neck and being a Roy Keane or a Fergie or, you know, driving force within the group. Across the board of those 12 Premiership clubs, there's not many standout leaders.
Like, for me, in my time when I played Premiership, obviously that was a long time ago, but the best players in the world were playing in the Premiership. We're playing for Saracens, we're playing for Leicester. I see, like, say, the current, even Exeter, who are nearly top. Like, I look around at the quality of the players there. Yes, they play well as a team and they're well organised, but I don't see real quality there. I see a team that's probably well directed. Saracens probably are coming down off where they were. And again, you look at the quality, and they've never really added to what they had. Like, they had a period where they just looked untouchable, and that was only maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. But unless you're constantly adding to that squad, the squad will tire and will come off its peak. And for me, it looks like we spoke very briefly about salary cap, and I do think the salary cap is an issue because salaries are going up.
Yeah.
The cap has remained the same.
Yeah.
And
hence the thinner squads.
The squads are getting thinner. They're trying to hold on to their players. There's more and more, and there are all those Premiership teams, because of the relegation scenario, they're all desperate for players. So they're fighting against each other for players. So and players will go anywhere. Like, they get players to go to Worcester. I don't care. I'll just take the money.
Yeah.
You know. So there's a dilution of quality players within the Premiership, and then of course you got France, who are there's no issue, and people want to go to Munster, people want to go to Leinster now. I want to go to Glasgow because the quality is good there too. So I think the Premiership is just struggling to get the quality of player they used to get.
Yeah, interesting. So Leicester, one of those teams, were at Kingspan last night. It was 3-0 at half time, so slightly dour first half, 3-0 to Leicester, and then Ulster really put it together in the second half. Alan O'Connor, Will Addison and Stockdale with the tries, and the likes of Henderson and Best back, and Michael Lowry was the one who caught the eye at 15, playing more as an out half. So he's 5'7", made about 93 metres, and he was kind of dunted back to full back because Ulster had to move things around. They had a few injuries, but really impressive, impressive.
I think maybe the first time I noticed him, it was a bit of 10 minutes in, and Leicester second row, I can't remember his name now, but he went absolutely cut the head clean off him. But he dived under him and kept on going. Yeah. And he defied the fact that he was half the size of everybody else, and he did what he had to do to make an impact. And he was great, and I think for Ulster it was one of those moments where they were able to put the line in the sand, and say, okay, our season hasn't been where we want it to be, but they have to look from where they were last year, with Piatau, with 2 boys, with the likes of Trimby, Bow, all these senior players in their squad now gone. It was a real moment for them, I thought. And I was really impressed with Henderson and with O'Connor, specifically O'Connor, because I always thought O'Connor was maybe just a little bit more of a club player, not really, but he really came of age, I thought, last night. He was very physical. He was a good carrier. Rory, of course, Rory being there is always solid for them. But the back row now are really good. Jordy's really brought a bit of solid there. So Yeah, like they did well. I thought they did well. They stuck in there because the first half was tough.
Yeah,
you know, it was a tough first half. But and they even got to try this loud. So I think for them that was massive, and they're back to where they were. You know, they're always strong in Ravenhill.
Yeah,
and you always say, well, Ulster will win their home matches.
Yeah,
but this time we weren't so sure.
Yeah.
If they really had it. So I think that's a good, it's a great day for them. You know, whether they can go on and actually take it on and win an away match, we'll see.
Well, the pool is so tough, so they have to go to Racing next week. You know, so you're up against it. But at least this takes a bit of pressure off them going there. And there was even a sense yesterday, Andy, of a must-win feel about the thing. You know, such is the pool and such is the nature of the competition. And I guess they delivered. I sort of agree with that line in the sand thing, because last season was so horrific. You know, given everything that was going on off the field as much as on it, there was just a kind of basket case was the word used, but a toxic sort of feel about the whole thing. And you got the real sense yesterday that the crowd really just wanted to say, can we all please move on and feel a bit good about supporting Ulster again? That's what they're certainly hoping for.
I think it's exactly the sense of occasion that happened there. I think it's an ideal time for a guy like Dan McFarlane to come in, I think, as head coach. He hasn't been a head coach before at this level, but he has been a coach, and he's been exposed to lots of different scenarios. He was in Connacht when I was there. You know, ultimately we were losing on a weekly basis. That's a very tough experience to go through for a coach, whether you're a head coach or assistant coach. But I think it's very interesting, not only because of the timing coming in. Okay, it's a good time to take over a club when they are a basket case, as we said.
The only way's up.
Yeah, the pressure is off him to an extent, but he's shown a lot of conviction and courage in terms of the way he's trying to play. And he's learned a lot from going to Scotland, into the Scottish system, and working with Gregor Townsend. And Ulster are at the top of the charts in terms of offloads. Now, they're not all coming off, but you either have the conviction to go through with it, or you abandon it after 4 weeks, at which point you've fallen between two stools and no one knows where you're at. And there's a big parallel between Pat Lamb's year where Connacht won the Pro 12, and at Christmas they had the most unforced errors in the league. They were number one for unforced errors, but they had the balls and the conviction to say, if we're going to try and play this game, we got to stick with it. And I can see that exact parallel with what Ulster are trying to do. And he's picking young guys. He's picking very young. You know, all their major contributors across the back three are under the age of 23, 24. He's thrown young guys in key decision-making roles. John Cooney's kind of having this incredible, what would we call it, an autumn of his career yet? I don't know, but he's literally crawled out from under a rock.
He's reborn.
And he's reborn. And so that, and again, that shows a lot of courage on John Cooney's part. They do have a couple of stalwarts there in Best, in Geordie Murphy and Ian Henderson, that are going to give them that grit and drive.
And what do you make of Billy Burns, actually, Freddie's brother?
I haven't seen enough of him consistently to give a fair assessment.
I think the word for him will be consistency.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's shown he can do some good things. You know, but it's for him, like, it'll be, you know, just bringing that bit of consistency.
I think if in that environment, what a team craves is a 10 who underplays his hand and just uses everyone around him. Ross Byrne would be a perfect example, who has this incredible capacity to do that when Leinster. He goes unnoticed, doesn't put a foot wrong, which is a really, really admirable trait of Ross's. I think Ulster will desperately need a guy in there who just gives everyone a bit of reassurance, because it is an uphill battle. But I think it was a massive moment. I think it's a big moment for Irish rugby yesterday that Ulster kind of bounced back.
Actually, you mentioned Ross Byrne. It's funny, the lingering image I have from Friday night is him when he misses the kick right at the death, and his face is just like, ugh.
He was raging.
On a night of perfection, that one is going to be remembered.
Yeah.
He'd been so good at the Aviva kicking the weekend before.
Well, it goes to show what he's made of as well, you know.
And proof that stats can be misleading. So Ulster are number 2 for offloads in the Pro 14. Number 1 are?
Zebre.
Yeah.
Zebre.
So it's not like offloads guarantees
They certainly don't. No.
Far from it.
An interesting question I want to put to both of you then, so to finish up on. So that's the Champions Cup opening weekend. Stephen Jones has written a piece in the Sunday Times. Is scoring getting boring? Is the headline. So, he says at one point, recently Leicester ran up 37 points against Worcester, Bristol scored 40 points against Northampton, Wasps 31 against Exeter, and Worcester 35 against Wasps. All of those teams lost. Score 40 points and lose, welcome to gaudy sport. Something serious is happening to rugby, something potentially ghastly. Tries are coming at such a rate that they go past the point where you treasure them and up to the point where they're cheapened and make you feel queasy. He says tries have risen every season for the past 6 years in the Premiership, the top 14 in France, and the Pro 14. And he says, I can remember a game between Bath and Bristol, for instance, in Bath, where play hardly moved more than 5 yards for 20 metres of scrummaging, but it was brilliant. It simply scrambled the senses in its industrial beauty, but now the scrum is diminished. So when the ball is at the back of the scrum, the refs start fretting and ball, use it, use it. If I was a tight head prop up front, I'd pop my head up and ask him why on earth he would want my team to use the ball. I've been training my whole life to dominate the scrum. And so on he goes. Was this something that had occurred to you over the last 5-6 years, that the scoring was getting higher?
No, but I think it's really well written piece.
Well, words like ghastly and gaudy and, you know, Stephen Jones.
It's Stephen Jones. I shared a lift with him from Heathrow to Twickenham on Paddy's Day this year. Yeah. He gave me a lift. I thought he was too cranky to offer anyone a lift, and I had a great chat with him about he's big into attritional rugby, and I think what he's trying to allude to there is, I would maybe make a comparison to the traditionalists who talk about Test cricket and the game being, you know, the real traditional part of the game has suddenly been gone for all this razzle-dazzle T20 cricket where guys are smashing balls out of the stadium, and where's the culture, where's the skill, where's the earn your right to do something flash. And I think he's a fair point in that the scrum probably is a bit homogenised now, and as a result then you're getting the ball, you know, it's harder.
Explain Mala's issue with use it. Why so referees screaming use it? Use it. What's the issue
they
there?
don't want to give the penalty. You know, I think there even could be a stipulation now, 3 penalties and I see back in the day I can remember being in scrums that go down the whole time and there'd be no penalty, it'd be a reset. Yeah. But every time a scrum goes down, he has to give a penalty. And so if he gives a penalty against the attacking side, then that's the attack over. So if he gives a penalty if he does 3 times, then it's a penalty try. Yeah. So the scrum can only be as useful as it's allowed to be, you know. So if there's a scrum goes down, like, there has to be a decision made. Where, like, I can remember being stuck on our own line against Bath in the European Cup in Lansdowne Road for it seemed an eternity behind Reggie Corrigan. Yeah. And we're driving to save our lives. And we get out of it. And, you know, for us, they were a much bigger pack. And because we survived that, it gave us the impetus then to go on and win the game. Yeah.
But in the modern era, the refs don't want to make a decision. Because it's a scary enough.
Yeah, like I think the scrum is being disempowered a little bit. Okay. And mainly because, a lot of the times, because people aren't prepared to be patient with it. You know, supporters aren't prepared to be patient with a scrum and say, oh God, it's gone down again. I just want to see some tries. Yeah. You know, where we should be, in France especially, they love the scrum. They love the pilier. They love the props. The props are glorified.
And they're well paid and they're superstars.
And they're well paid. And
is it a bit boring? Do we want to have
But it depends what you want out of the game.
Yeah. What do you prefer?
From a person that's been into scrums, I started hating scrums as a second row because I was 100 kg and it was like all I want to do is run around the pitch. Yeah. But by the end of it, for me, scrum was out. I just loved scrummaging. It was a fantastic part.
And as a viewer now, when you go and watch a match, do you want to see more scrum?
I like to see a scrum. I like to see. I hate to see, but I hate to see penalties given for scrums. I prefer to see it, you know, reset and gone again. And but I can remember a really important penalty. I remember Ireland played New Zealand over New Zealand, and there was Ireland were dominating the scrum, especially in the latter stages, and I can remember Cian Healy driving back New Zealand scrum, and it should have been a penalty, but it was nothing given, you know. So there is a lot of grey there as to like, why is that a penalty or or use it?
Brendan Fanning has an interesting piece where he's spoken to a referee anonymously who's still involved and says, frankly, there are times where I'm looking at this and it's blind panic. I don't know which way to give it.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why they're saying use it. Where are you, Andy, on the diminishing place of the scrum in the game, and also are tries being cheapened?
I don't think tries are being cheapened because I think defensive organisation is far greater than it used to be. So I think it's actually, I think that's the game has evolved and that's a great progression. I think that's a bit of a cranky view. I get the fact that the scrums have been diminished, and I think he's got a fair argument on that side of the fence. There's two specifics I think could help in the scrum. And one is a bit radical. I've said it on here before, is like a special team, like a ref who's an ex-prop. Why can't a guy come on and ref? Because I didn't know what was happening. Why can't he literally be rolled on to do, or have one or two of them?
Out comes Reggie Corrigan.
Yeah, but like, why not? Like, I can tell you, I had no idea what was happening in the scrum in front of me.
Quick
and
question:
I'm a player.
Is it possible for, say, it's Reggie Corrigan, for example, who's brought on to ref the scrum? Do you have to be in a scrum to know what's going on, or would Corrigan be able to tell standing nearby?
You've got six guys together. It's very hard to know who's doing what, and some guy just slipped.
Well, if you have a chat,
it could look like,
if you sit down for a pint with a prop and you watch a game, it's a very different experience to sitting down with anyone else.
Is that right?
And they'll tell you, this is what's happening here, this is what's happening. And to be honest, they're things I wouldn't notice, but they're small, they are significant, and I think it's worth looking at. The other thing I think is worth looking at is having zero tolerance on the crooked feeds. If you get a 9 to actually have to put the ball in straight, you're going to have to start scrummaging again, because everybody just feeds it into the second row, and they get so complicated about changing the touch, pause, crouch. Like, it's a different thing every year. It's hilarious at this stage. Just make the 9 put it in straight, and you're going to have to scrummage.
Quick point, actually. Peter O'Mahony's still getting away with his under Stephen Archer bind. Did you notice that, Mal?
Yeah.
Is he allowed to do that?
He's doing that.
Definitely illegal.
It's completely
he's doing
illegal.
that, I presume, on his own ball. He's obviously not doing it on their ball, because like that bind would obviously bind him to the scrum a lot more.
I think the law says everyone bar the front row has to be bound to the 2 locks.
Okay.
So he's bound fully behind his tight head, and it's hilarious as well because he's doing it immediately under the referee's nose.
Yeah.
It's like it's so obvious the ref's not even looking for it.
Like it's funny, we used to just do a sneaky bind where we'd bind underneath the hooker as well. So we bind the hooker and the prop instead of binding your second row. So you'd have one, the left hand would bind under the hooker, and we get blown for that.
Right.
You know, so I don't know how he's got away with it, especially seeing it was mentioned on
after
TV.
the Aviva, it was blown up.
They would have.
Well, you thought that's him done now. He's done it too often and he's screwed.
I'm amazed as well.
He maybe just sneaks it at the very.
But it made me wonder when I saw it at Sandy Park. Maybe this thing somehow is legal because the referee would have been notified this was going on.
Well, exactly. I think we know that set up in pre-game.
There's a big difference. To be fair, it's a big difference.
It makes a big difference.
It would make a big difference because you'd have a lot more shoulder on the sweet spot.
I mean, the captain and coach, I am sure, from Exeter would have been in that referee's ear all week about this, and he still got away with it.
Wow. Yeah, well, maybe more fooled Exeter.
Maybe he's just very sneaky.
You know, like to be fair, Exeter should have picked up on that maybe a little bit more.
Lads, we're pretty much out of time. We've zipped by in an hour there. So a good opening weekend in the Champions Cup. So Leinster away to Toulouse next Saturday. Munster have Gloucester at home and Ulster have Racing away. Give me a quick prediction on those 3. Leinster at Toulouse.
I think Leinster will win.
Okay. Munster home to Gloucester.
I think Munster will win.
And Ulster in Paris.
Racing.
Yeah. Andy, do you care to differ?
No.
Okay. Done. Thanks very much, lads. Pleasure. Andy Dunne and Mallow Kelly.
Joe.
Short break.
Listen back to your favourite News Talk shows at newstalk.com and on the News Talk app.
At M&S, we're committed to bringing you the same great quality at new lower prices. From restaurant-quality gastropub meals and decadent desserts to everyday essentials, you can now enjoy the quality you expect at prices you love. Same great quality, new lower price. M&S. For less. See in store for details.
You hear that? That's time going by. Time you've probably spent worrying about the future for your business. But did you know you still have time?